He once nearly blew up a friend using powerful fireworks near a toilet. Massive water gun battles led by the king himself caused thousands of dollars in damage to luxury hotel suites. Elvis staged fake, violent arguments so realistic they left members of his own crew shaking in terror, convinced they were about to witness a murder. He carried joy buzzers and other shocking devices, using them constantly on unsuspecting pals and even near strangers. Sometimes, late at night, he'd don terrifying masks and leap out from dark corners just to hear his friends scream. Number 5. When Elvis decided fireworks belonged in the bathroom. You know how some people like a little peace and quiet when they use the restroom. Elvis wasn't really about that vibe when he was in prank mode. He had a deep, abiding love for fireworks. Not just the pretty, sparkly kind you see on the 4th of July. We're talking the loud, concussive kind. Cherry bombs, M80s, things that went B-A-N-G. And he didn't always save them for wide open spaces. Oh no. One of his favorite targets, anywhere near an unsuspecting member of his crew, especially if they were in a confined space. Like, say, a bathroom stall or an outhouse. Picture this. It's maybe a quiet moment at Graceland, or perhaps on location during the filming of one of his many movies. One of the guys, maybe Lamar Fike, known for his size and often the butt of Elvis's jokes, or maybe Billy Smith, his younger cousin, heads off for a moment of privacy. They think they're safe. They think it's just a normal trip to the necessary room. They are wrong. So very, very wrong. Elvis, with that mischievous glint in his eye that always spelled trouble would be lurking. He'd have his firecracker-ready fuse, waiting. He wasn't necessarily trying to hit them. Not usually, but he wanted the shock value. The sheer, unadulterated sonic boom echoing off the tiles or the thin walls of a wooden outhouse. He'd wait until the perfect moment, maybe just as the person was settling in completely vulnerable. Then, flick the fuse's lid. He'd toss it. Not always in the toilet bowl itself, though sometimes accounts suggest exactly that, but near enough to maximize the effect. Imagine the sound. Not just a pop, but a deafening K-A-B-O-O-M. Water might fly everywhere if the target was the bowl. The door might rattle on its hinges. The poor guy inside. Pure, unadulterated shock. Jumping a foot in the air, heart pounding like a drum solo, probably letting out a yell that could rival Elvis's own stage screams. There are stories of porcelain cracking, of small outhouse structures literally being shaken or damaged by the force of these firework pranks. It wasn't just a little startling, it was borderline dangerous. A sudden explosion in an enclosed space. And where was Elvis during all this? Doubled over? Laughing that deep, infectious, uncontrollable laugh of his. Tears might be streaming down his face. He found the sudden chaos, the look of sheer terror morphing into annoyed realization on his friend's face. Absolutely hysterical. The other guys in the Memphis Mafia might be laughing too, partly in relief it wasn't them, partly because Elvis's laughter was so contagious. This wasn't a one-off thing. Fireworks were a constant presence. He'd light them in hallways, toss them near people's feet, set them off backstage. He bought them in bulk. He seemed to genuinely delight in the sudden, startling noise and the jump scare reaction it provoked. The bathroom incidents, though, were particularly memorable for their audacity and the sheer violation of a typically private moment. It was loud, it was messy, it was potentially hazardous, and Elvis thought it was the funniest thing in the world. The cleanup, well, that was usually someone else's problem. Elvis just provided the bang. He loved the bang. He loved the chaos. He loved seeing his buddies jump right out of their skin, even if they were just trying to answer nature's call. It was just another day living in the King's Court, where even the commode wasn't a guaranteed safe zone from a practical joke involving explosives. Number 4. Turning luxury suites into full-blown water battlefields. Elvis Presley loved water fights. Not just a little sprinkle with a novelty water pistol. We are talking about epic room trashing. Fully immersive water warfare. When Elvis decided it was time for a water fight, you didn't just get damp. You got soaked. And so did everything else. Furniture, carpets, curtains, expensive clothing. Nothing was safe. These weren't spontaneous little squirts. They were often planned operations, especially when the group was cooped up in hotel suites, particularly during his Las Vegas residencies or while staying in rented mansions in California during movie shoots. Boredom could set in, and for Elvis, the cure for boredom was often chaos, preferably involving large amounts of water. He wouldn't just use standard water guns. Oh, no. Elvis and his crew would procure high-powered water cannons, church squirters, buckets, waste bins, fire extinguishers filled with water, seltzer bottles, anything that could hold and propel liquid. Sometimes they'd even use hotel fire hoses if they could get access, turning hallways into rivers. This was serious business. Forts would be made out of overturned furniture. Chimas would be formed. Strategies, albeit loose ones, might be discussed. Elvis, naturally, was usually the general leading the charge, laughing maniacally as he drenched his targets. Imagine being a guest at a high-end hotel like the International in Las Vegas, later the Hilton. You're paying top dollar for luxury and peace. Suddenly, down the hall, you hear shouting, laughing, splashing. Water starts seeping under the door of the presidential suite, occupied by Elvis and his entourage. Inside, it's pandemonium. Guys are slipping and sliding on soaked carpets. Water is arcing through the air, hitting walls, soaking velvet couches, drenching expensive suits laid out for the evening show. Lamps might be knocked over. Vases might shatter. It's absolute mayhem, soundtracked by Elvis's booming laughter. He didn't discriminate. Everyone in the inner circle was fair game. Joe Esposito, Red West, Sonny West, Lamar Fike, Jerry Schilling, Charlie Hodge, his cousins, even girlfriends or visiting friends, might get caught in the crossfire. Sometimes, other celebrities who were visiting might find themselves unexpectedly drafted into the aquatic combat. Refusal wasn't really an option when the king wanted to play. You either joined in or became the primary target. The aftermath was often staggering. Hotel managers would arrive to find suites utterly devastated. Carpets squelching, wallpaper peeling, furniture ruined. The cost of the damage could run into thousands, sometimes tens of thousands of dollars, even back then. Elvis, usually still buzzing from the fun, would simply tell his manager, Colonel Tom Parker, or his right-hand man, Joe Esposito, to take care of it, and they would. The hotel bills for damages were just another cost of doing business, another expense chalked up to keeping the king entertained. There are specific accounts of fights lasting for hours, moving from room to room, floor to floor. Sometimes they'd fill buckets from the bathtubs. Other times they'd rig up hoses. The sheer volume of water involved was incredible. It wasn't just fun and games. It involved significant property, destruction. But for Elvis, it seemed to be a necessary release, a way to blow off steam and recapture a sense of childlike fun, albeit on a ridiculously grand and expensive scale. He loved the physicality, the energy, the surprise attacks, and the shared experience, even if it meant completely waterlogging a penthouse suite. The hotel staff might have dreaded it. The colonel might have grumbled about the cost. But when Elvis picked up a water cannon, everyone knew they were in for a wild, wet ride. Number 3. Staging fights so real, they felt like mob his. Beyond the physical pranks, like fireworks and water guns, Elvis had a taste for psychological warfare, particularly staging incredibly realistic fake arguments and fights that left the unsuspecting target genuinely terrified. He seemed to relish the drama, the tension, and the look of pure fear on someone's face when they thought they were witnessing or about to be involved in serious violence. These weren't just playful shoves or loud disagreements. Elvis would orchestrate scenarios that felt menacingly real. He'd often enlist one or two other members of the Memphis Mafia, usually guys like Red West, who had a background in stunt work and could look genuinely intimidating, to be his co-conspirators. They would pick a target, often a newer member of the Entourage, a visiting friend, or someone Elvis felt was getting a bit too comfortable. The setup might happen in a hotel room, boxed, or even at Graceland. Elvis and his chosen accomplice would start an argument seemingly out of nowhere. It might begin with a perceived slight, a disagreement over money, or some other invented grievance. The volume would escalate quickly. Voices would raise, accusations would fly. Elvis, a natural actor, could turn on the intensity in an instant, his face darkening, his tone becoming sharp and threatening. His partner in the prank would match his energy, perhaps getting physically agitated, pacing, clenching fists. The poor target, caught in the middle, would initially just be uncomfortable. But Elvis and his accomplice wouldn't let up. They'd push it further and further. Insults would become more personal, threats more explicit. It might look like blows were about to be exchanged. Sometimes they'd even stage physical contact, a hard shove, grabbing clothing, carefully choreographed but looking terrifyingly real to the observer. The atmosphere would become thick with tension, the observer convinced that something truly awful was about to happen. They might try to intervene to calm things down, only to be snapped at or told to stay out of it, increasing their sense of helplessness and fear. Imagine being that person. You admire Elvis, you're part of his world, and suddenly you're witnessing your idol, seemingly about to get into a brutal fight, or perhaps he's furious at you for some reason you can't fathom. The fear would be intense. Your heart pounds, your palms sweat. You might be looking for an escape route, wondering if you should call security, completely believing the violent scenario unfolding before your eyes. And then, just as the tension reached its absolute peak, maybe with one person seemingly reaching for a weapon, perhaps a prop, maybe just implied, Elvis would suddenly break. That intense, angry expression would vanish, replaced by a wide grin or his signature booming laugh. His accomplice would drop the act, too. The target, still shaking, adrenaline pumping, would be met with laughter and maybe a slap on the back. "Gotcha," Elvis might exclaim, utterly delighted by the success of the ruse and the genuine terror he'd induced. The relief for the victim would be immense, but often mixed with confusion, embarrassment, and maybe even a little resentment. They had been put through an emotional wringer, made to feel genuinely unsafe. But for Elvis, it was hilarious. He loved the performance aspect, the ability to manipulate the situation and control the emotional response of his audience of one. It was like a scene from a movie, played out in real life, with one unwitting participant who didn't know the script was fake. These staged conflicts were a testament to Elvis's acting ability and his sometimes cruel sense of humor, pushing the boundaries of a prank into something that felt genuinely disturbing for the person on the receiving end. It was a power play, a test, and a form of entertainment all rolled into one, leaving the target shaken long after the laughter died down. Number 2. The relentless campaign of shocks and buzzes. Elvis Presley's love for pranks wasn't limited to grand, elaborate schemes. He was also a master of the quick, annoying, and sometimes startling physical gag. Chief among these was his near-constant use of the joy buzzer and other mild, shocking devices. If you were shaking Elvis's hand, you learned to be wary, very wary. He seemed to almost always have one on him. The classic joy buzzer, that little metal disc hidden in the palm that delivers a vibrating buzz meant to feel like a mild electric shock, was a staple. Meeting someone new, buzz greeting a friend, buzz ah. Saying goodbye after a conversation, buzz. He found the small jump, the yelp of surprise, endlessly amusing. It didn't matter who it was, members of his band, his entourage, studio engineers, movie extras, journalists, even sometimes unsuspecting fans or dignitaries if he thought he could get away with it. The handshake was the most common delivery method, a seemingly innocent gesture turned into a moment of surprise. He'd palm the buzzer expertly, offer his hand with a charming smile, and then delight in the recipient's reaction as the vibration hit them. His laugh would inevitably follow, that full-bodied sound of pure amusement. But it wasn't just standard joy buzzers. Elvis reportedly acquired various novelty items designed to deliver a small, static shock. Pens that shocked you when you clicked them. Lighters that gave a zap. Little gadgets he could conceal and deploy at opportune moments. He might leave a shocking pen lying around, waiting for someone to pick it up. He might offer a light and deliver a jolt instead of a flame. This wasn't an occasional thing. It was persistent. For the guys in the Memphis Mafia, it was just part of the daily landscape. You learned to anticipate it, to watch his hands, though he was often quick enough to catch even the wary off guard. It could be annoying, disruptive, especially if you were trying to have a serious conversation or focus on something. But complaining didn't really work. It often just made him want to do it more. Imagine trying to work with Elvis in the recording studio. You're focused on the music, the levels, the performance. He comes over to listen to a playback, maybe puts an arm around your shoulder in a friendly gesture, and then ZAP, he touches your arm or neck with a concealed shocking device. Or he offers you his special pen to make notes. It was a constant barrage of minor, irritating surprises. Why did he enjoy it so much? It seemed tied to his love of immediate reactions, of breaking the tension or the monotony, of keeping everyone slightly on edge and focused on him. It was a simple, almost childish prank, but he deployed it with relentless consistency. It didn't cause any real harm, unlike the fireworks or the staged fights, but the sheer frequency made it notable. It was a physical manifestation of his playful, sometimes aggravating energy. He wasn't just the king of rock and roll, he was the king of the joy buzzer, the undisputed champion of the minor shock gag. It might seem trivial compared to flooding hotel rooms, but the dedication he showed to this particular form of pranking, the way it became an everyday occurrence in his world, makes it a significant part of his elaborate repertoire of jokes. Shaking hands with Elvis wasn't just meeting a legend, it was potentially risking a little jolt, a little buzz, courtesy of the king's mischievous palm. It was annoying, it was silly, but it was pure, unadulterated Elvis. Number 1. Master of the Masked Scare and Midnight Ambush. Elvis Presley had a fascination with the macabre and the startling, fueled perhaps by his love for horror movies and comic books. This manifested in one of his favorite types of pranks, the good old-fashioned scare. But Elvis didn't just say boo, he elevated it. He used masks, costumes, darkness, and surprise to genuinely terrify his friends and family, often late at night. Graceland, with its long corridors, numerous rooms, and sprawling grounds, was the perfect setting. So were dimly lit backstage areas or hotel hallways after hours. Elvis knew these spaces intimately and used them to his advantage. He possessed a collection of scary masks. Gorilla masks were reportedly a favorite, but also clown masks, monster masks, anything grotesque or startling. The prank often involved meticulous planning. Elvis would wait until things were quiet, maybe when everyone was heading to bed or engrossed in a late-night movie or card game. He'd slip away unnoticed, don his chosen mask, perhaps adding a sheet or cloak for dramatic effect. Then he would position himself strategically behind a door, in a dark alcove, around a blind corner, or even outside a window. He would wait sometimes for a considerable period, perfectly still, anticipating his victim. When the unsuspecting person walked by, completely unaware, Elvis would leap out, perhaps emitting a guttural roar or a chilling shriek. The effect was instantaneous and dramatic. Screams would erupt. People would jump back, stumble, sometimes fall over in sheer fright. The sudden appearance of a monstrous figure in the dead of night, especially when unexpected, was enough to send adrenaline coursing through anyone. Elvis found these reactions utterly priceless. That moment of pure, unadulterated fear, followed by the dawning realization that it was just Elvis behind the mask, was peak comedy for him. His laughter would boom through the house or hallway as his victim tried to catch their breath, heart hammering against their ribs. The angrier or more scared the reaction, the funnier Elvis seemed to find it. He didn't just rely on masks. Sometimes his sheer presence emerging silently from the shadows was enough. He could move quietly when he wanted to. He might sneak into someone's bedroom while they were sleeping and wake them with a sudden noise or touch, startling them awake in the darkness. He might hide under beds or in closets, waiting for the perfect moment to reveal himself. Members of the Memphis Mafia became accustomed to these nocturnal ambushes, but that didn't always lessen the shock. You could never be entirely sure when or where Elvis might strike next. Walking down a dark corridor at Graceland often involved a certain level of trepidation. Was Elvis lurking? Was that shadow just a shadow? Or was it the king waiting to pounce? This wasn't just about a quick jump scare. It was about creating an atmosphere of suspense and delivering a powerful, visceral shock. It tapped into primal fears. The fear of the dark, the unknown, the monstrous. Elvis orchestrated these moments like a horror movie director, using timing, atmosphere, and disguise to maximize the fright factor. For the victims, it could be genuinely unnerving. Being startled awake or confronted by a terrifying figure, even if you knew it, was probably Elvis was not always a pleasant experience. But it was part of the package of being in Elvis's inner circle. His need for excitement and entertainment often spilled over into these elaborate, sometimes frightening pranks. He was the master of his domain, and that domain sometimes included the shadowy corners where he could transform momentarily from the king of rock and roll into the king of the scare. The masks, the darkness, the sudden leap, it was all part of the elaborate performance of being Elvis Presley, where even bedtime wasn't safe from a command performance of fear.